Okay, Tyler Heron asks a question. He says, I'm starting out in my first real garage shop area and struggling with something that I've struggled with a lot of my large-scale organizational attempts. That is, when there are certain categories of items that I don't currently have a lot of or rarely need. I like to have a spot for everything, and I hate the dreaded miscellaneous bin shelf drawer. How do you organize and store the one-off items in your shop that don't quite fit into everything else? Well, so there's your question about how. The biggest issue with one-offs is when you need it again, if you don't have a dedicated place for it, where the hell are you going to go find it? I have that problem here. I'll buy a tool and counter bores. I bought some counter bores, which are for cap head screws and machining. But I stored them in a drawer that accidentally labeled them countersinks. So I lost them for 6 months. My advice for the one-offs is if they will eventually have a home in the shop, you'll only determine that by wheeling it into your process. Ergo, the most important part of a one-off in your shop, of a single item that doesn't have a lot of brothers and sisters, is to know where it is. And the answer to knowing where it is to pick it up and ask yourself, if I needed it right now, where would I look for it? And then just put it there. Over time, you may develop another place that makes sense for you to look for it. But until you do, go with that first thought, best thought. Yeah, go with the beat poets. First thought, best thought. Your first idea about where that thing should go, that's where it should go. And then over time, you know, I have some things over here like one of my gauges for setting up my mill, my hammer gauge. I don't have a home for it because I use it too often. So it effectively does have a home. It's just a pride of place on top of a box. It's first order retrievable for me. There may come a time, I don't know, when it ends up going into a drawer or into a special shelf, but for right now, it lives by itself. I tend to try and keep the one-offs in view on a few different surfaces. So like over here, I've got my speaker and what do you call it? My big granite block for machine layout. And that tends to be a surface I store, that's an interim surface. Like nothing that lives there is there permanently. And you're going to have a few spaces like that in your shop. Spaces where stuff kind of gathers in piles and then you tackle it. And it gathers in piles and then you tackle it. It's yeah. I hope that was useful. There's a question about my wife in here, which I really wanted to talk about. Let's see here. Where is it? Do you organize your shop with the same regularity that you organize your home, or do you keep one cleaner than the other? Oh, my home is far cleaner than my shop. Yeah. Here we go. Jacob Souls asks, since the cave is primarily your space, I imagine that you can more or less organize it the way you want. Yes. But since you live with another human, do you ever have conflicts with Mrs. Donttrythis as to how things are organized at home? Yeah, absolutely. We've had some conflicts. Most of the conflicts we've had about organization is that I think very quickly in terms of organization, and I have a process for it here, which is like I try something, and if it doesn't work, I try something else. I don't spend a lot of time pondering how to organize. Well, I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll park something for organizational purview and just sort of noodle with it for a few weeks. But for the most part, if I have a collection of stuff and there's a need for it to go somewhere, I'm like trudging off to go find where it can go. And the conflict we've had hasn't been about where stuff goes. It's just been about the sort of work practice, right? Like I'm a fast decision maker, which means that if I'm working with a slow decision maker, the goal isn't for them to start making faster decisions. It's for the two of us to meet somewhere in the middle. It's funny, there was over the years that we've lived in our house, we've done various modifications of the house. And a few years ago, we were thinking about shifting our bedroom from one room to another. And in order to sort of ponder this, my wife asked for a layout of the top floor. So I took a shopping bag and went around, and I have this practice that I do now with dimensions that this is really, really neat for doing dimensions of your room. So let's say you have a room and it's got a door right here. So you've got the room, you know it's roughly rectangular, you don't know what size it is. Here's how I tackle this. I make a measurement arrow. At each place I want a measurement, and then I make a blank circle. So then I make a blank circle where each of the measurements is necessary. So then I go through the place and make sure I've covered all the topography I want measurements of. And then I just go and I fill in the circles. And if a circle is empty, it means I don't have that dimension yet. So I started gathering measurements around the house. So my wife said, "Do you want me to help?" I was like, "Absolutely." And she said, "How can I help?" And I said, "If you would grab the end of this tape measure and hold it into that corner." She holds it into that corner. I'm like, "Great. If you would hold it into that corner." She said, "Great." And I was like, "Okay, now hold it over here by the door. Not that part, this part of the door." "Great. All right, now this part of the, no, if you'll hold it." And I just started moving as quickly as I moved to do something. And when we finished about 20 minutes later, she was like, "Wow, that was intense. Is that what you're like to work with?" She said. And I said, "Yeah." She's like, it's pretty single-minded. It's very, it's like a freight train. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's totally true. Look, this is all part of the process of us sort of learning how the other works. So your question about the conflicts, look, I feel very lucky. We don't have any conflicts about where stuff goes in the house. And at this moment in time, and really the lockdown helped us refine this, at this moment in time, we're using our whole house. Like, over my life, I've had, I don't know, a couple of dozen apartments and living spaces. And in all of them, there's always been like drawers or rooms full of crap. And we've finally gotten rid of all of the spaces full of crap. Okay, the garage is full of crap right now, but the car is too big to park in there. That's fine. It's all really organized. And when I need a specific thing, I can go down there. I know where everything is. And that's been hard won. We worked hard at that to sort of like really tackle each space in the house and make sure that we feel like we're utilizing it. You know, we've had a lot of guests over the last couple of years. There's nothing nicer than having everything ready so that when someone comes, you can give them the guest room and you can stay there. It's just absolutely delightful. But I have traveled far afield from your original question. Yeah, the conflict resolution so there's another question about how messy that other question about how messy my house is versus the shop. Obviously, I really love a certain amount of visual cacophony around me when I work, but I am not so narcissistic to think that that's how everyone around me should live. No. And our house is a much calmer place. It's much cleaner. There's still stuff everywhere, but it's more refined. And you've seen videos from my office. That's about as cacophonous as I let it get. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.